Andariki namaskaramulu. Today is another good day for all of us that we are going to have another very interesting, informative, enlightening lecture from our Guruji, Dr. CSR Prabhu Garu. We already had lot of lectures during this course, advanced level 2 certificate course on Sanatana Dharma. We had Vedas, Vedangas, Upanishads, Darshanams, all from him. Now he is going to give another lecture on Vimana Sastra. He will go deep into that. We had an introduction in the basic course. Now we'll go deep into that. So now we will start the session with Vande Mataram and Prarthana. After that, we will hand over the platform to Prabhu Garu. Sala Chitti Prabhu Garu, please.
Vande Mataram, Vande Mataram, Sujalam Sufalam, Malaya Jasitalam, Sasya Syamalam Mataram, Vande Mataram. Suprajosna pulakitayamini Pullakusumita drumadala shobhini Suhasini Sumadhura bhashini Sukhadam varadam mataram Vande Mataram Vande Mataram.
Vande Mataram. Now let us request Anantanji to chant Pradhana, please.
Hari Om. 1 minute meditation. Let us close our eyes. Sit erect. Relax our body. Watch the breath. Effortlessly. Visualize your body. As you are observing any other thing. Trivaram Omkaram. Om. Om. Om Gananantva Ganapatigum Havamahe Kavin Kavinam Upamasravastamam Jashtatajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspata Anushrunvannoti Visida Sadanam Mahaganapataye Namaha Prano Devi Saraswati Vaje Birvajinivati Dhinam Avidyavatu Vagdevyai Namaha Gurureva Gati Gurumeva Bhaje Gurunaiva Sahasmi Namo Gurave Naguror Paramam Shishurasmi Guroho Matirasti Gurau Mama Pahi Guru Jnananandamayan Devam Nirmalaspatikakritim Adharam Sarva Vidyanam हयग्रीवमुपास्महे श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानामालयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादशङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति 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 हरि ओम।
ధన్యవాదములండి అనంతన్ గారు. Let us request Prabhu garu to start the webinar, please.
Om Namo Brahmadibhyo Brahma Vidya Sampradaya Kartribhyo Vamsa Rishibhyo Mahadbhyo Namo Gurubhyaha Sarvopaplavarahita Prajnanagana Pratyagardho Sohamasmi Brahmaivahamasmi. Friends, today we will be covering a very challenging and very provoking and very exciting topic, that is Vimana Shastra. We'll go deeper than last time. Before we start that, there are fundamental questions which require to be answered. The first question is whether all science and technology originated in the West, in England or nearby England only. Is that a fact? Or it is not a fact? Number two, are all the descriptions given in the Puranas or in Mahabharata or in Ramayana with regard to high technology, are they true facts or they're false, fake, exaggeration statements? Are they true or false? So these two questions, the answers to these two questions are very difficult to give. Suppose you say, take the first question. According to our textbooks, all science and technology and even mathematics and everything, physics, chemistry, everything originated in England or nearby England. So before the Newton had his head hit with an apple falling from a tree, he had no idea, and nobody in the world had any idea that there is something called gravitation. Is that true? Or many such things? If that is true, then there should be no evidence of technology before Newton or Leibniz. But all our massive constructions of temples and even outside India, the pyramids and pagodas and so many other things cannot be constructed because without understanding gravitation force, it is not possible to construct any such massive temple or pyramid or pagoda. In fact, today itself you cannot construct any pyramid. It's not possible. So obviously that statement, the answer to the first question is no. All science had not originated in the West, England or nearby England, around 3 centuries or 2.5 centuries back, as it is made out. In this world, we live in the world of narratives. in Kashi itself, there is that Kashi Vishwanath temple. There are people who are arguing in the courts that that particular masjid constructed by Aurangzeb was there for more than 1,000 years. Aurangzeb is around 300-400 years, 1690. There are people who are arguing that that masjid was there before Aurangzeb also, it was there for 1,000 years. So this kind of narratives people build up. Communists will build up particular type of narrative. The leftist ideologues build up particular narratives. The Islamic, what do you call it, extreme ideologues, they build up particular narrative. The Christian missionaries build up particular narrative. So everybody will present with some kind of narratives, and all of them will be usually fake. And until and unless somebody proves it is fake, nobody knows that it is fake. So the second question, you can say that is also a narrative built up by Hindu fundamentalists. You can say that. That's why all the leftist ideologues or the Islamic ideologues or Christian missionary ideologues, they reject the existence or the reality of Ramayana or Mahabharata or other Puranas. In fact, Congress party took a stand that Rama never existed. So the narratives are the problem. The reason is that people don't know the truth. It's not possible to know. For example, right now, outside your house or your complex, what is there? If I ask a question, you may tell some kind of answer saying there is a man or there is a dog or there is a cow, or you may say nothing is there. But there is no proof until and unless you really go there and observe it, take photograph and show it to the world. There is no proof. So why I am telling these two questions? Unless and until there is a proof, nobody will accept. So I was working on getting a proof for these two questions, answers, for the last around say 50 years, because I was a student of engineering during 1971 to 76. Since then till today, I have been trying to search for answers to these two questions. Because if you say yes, you should have an evidence or proof. If you say no, then you should have an evidence or proof. Both ways for both questions. In fact, in our life, whatever we do, we should do with proof only. Whatever we think or whatever you say. Mataka pranam satyam. The life of a word is the truth in it. And the truth can be established by evidence or proof. That is why it is called pramana. The pramana can be pratyaksha, anumana, etc., etc. That is separate issue. So the entire science is based on pramana, both the pratyaksha and anumana. Of course, the third Shruti Pramana is also there, which people may not accept always. But at least some Pramana should be there, provable knowledge. So to acquire this Pramana, when we search the entire literature, as you know, Sanskrit language is the oldest language. It has got around 25 to 30,000 texts in it. Most of them have not been published. The reason is that the publication will be possible only when the translation happens and printing happens. I've seen with my own eyes one single example in one manuscript library in Saraswati Mahal in Tanjavur. There are 22,000 manuscripts, out of which only 150 were published as books. So such manuscript libraries exist in plenty in India and outside India also. In India, every university is having a manuscript library. Every government, state government has a manuscript library, more than one. In fact, in places like Kashi, there will be a number of manuscript libraries, or they were. Now they may not be there, they have been lost or closed or whatever reasons. Even outside India, Nepal has huge manuscript library collections. And of course, Germany they have taken thousands and thousands of manuscripts from India. And then Oxford in UK also has. In fact, some of the original texts are not found in India, they are found only outside India. China has got a large number of manuscripts during the period of Yuan Sang, Huang, and later. Around 10 to 20,000 manuscripts were shifted from India to China, and then they were translated to Chinese. In fact, many texts are available in Chinese and not in Sanskrit now, because the Sanskrit manuscript got lost, only Chinese manuscript. So this kind of transfer of knowledge has taken place between India and China, between India and Arabia. To Arabia, a large number of texts went, and from Arabia to the knowledge spread to Europe. And not to speak of the theft that took place during British rule and by Germans during British rule, or only Germans did this knowledge transfer in the beginning, in the recent times, and the Second World War was fought based on V2 rockets built by Germans, which were supposed to have been designed and constructed by using Indian Sanskrit manuscripts, including the Vimana Sastra type of manuscripts. Many may be there. So this scenario is very complex and very bizarre. All the books which you study in the modern day belonging to Sanskrit language or Telugu or Tamil or other ancient Indian languages, they are only some part of the total manuscripts that were there. Because the scenario till printing was invented was that everybody wrote on the palm leaf or bhoja leaf, bhurja. There's a bhojpatra or bhurjapatra, which is a big size, which is found in the Himalayas. I've seen it, on which also they'll write, and they'll write on the palm leaves with some hard metallic instrument. So this has been going on, and what they were doing was that they were copying again and again some of the important texts like Ramayana or Mahabharata. But if suppose somebody did not copy a particular text, the text is gone once for all, with that palm leaf manuscript getting eroded with time or lost. So first risk was, the first point is that whosoever wanted to write a book, he wrote on palm leaf or bhoja leaf. I mean, this situation existed till printing was invented. That is more than 20,000 years of development of literature in India and surroundings. All the subjects were recorded in Sanskrit language only, because Sanskrit language was the global language. Our Sanskrit Bharati and our Prabhakara Garu and all our people, they are thinking Sanskrit is the Indian language. That is a mistake. Sanskrit was a global language, because they had to have some mechanism for expressing, representing knowledge globally. So interlingual, international, intercontinental mechanism of expression of knowledge. So they developed, invented Sanskrit language. In fact, this took place from before Rigveda. Before Rigveda, only Prakrits were there and some hymns called Nivits were there. Very few, they are lost. So all these Prakrits, Tamil is the oldest Prakrit. Telugu is nothing but Tamil only in a modified fashion. So the old Prakrits, oldest is Tamil. All the Prakrits words were compiled and integrated into one Sanskrit, that is a language which has been processed or refined or artificially prepared. Prakrit means naturally evolved. So the natural language processing started with NLP, which we call NLP in AI today. Started with the invention of Sanskrit language itself before Rigveda, which is not less than 20,000 years, or we don't know exactly, it may be 50,000 or 60,000. So the Vedas were the repository of all knowledge. And because they knew this palm leaf business is going to be very difficult, because those days palm leaf, they didn't even have the technology of writing on palm leaves. So they took a mechanism, they took resort to an oral mechanism where you chant the knowledge. You chant the knowledge in a specific meter, that is chandas, and you record it as a mantra of the Veda in an oral manner. That is why it is called Shruti. It is spoken and heard. The entire thing is called Shruti. The Veda is entire Veda comprising of hundreds of branches. Today we have only some 9 branches total. All the 4 Vedas put together. So before Veda Vyasa, Ananta hi Veda, the Vedas were infinite in size. They had infinite number of mantras which were delivered by the rishis, and they were all in a different language called, which we call today Vedic Sanskrit. It is not normal Sanskrit. Usually people have this question. Suppose I ask a question, Valmiki. Valmiki is Adi Kavi for which language? Suppose I ask you this question, you will all give answer Sanskrit. If it is really so, what about the Vedas? The Vedas are also in Sanskrit, but Valmiki was not born when any one of the Vedic mantras were delivered. And there are thousands and thousands of Vedic mantras. So what is the point in saying Valmiki is the Adi Kavi? Then people say we don't know. So the reality is that Valmiki is Adi Kavi, not for the Vedic language, which is Vedic Sanskrit, is the Adi Kavi for the modern Sanskrit, which is like Hindi at that time. During Valmiki's time or Rama's time, whatever language status which the common people spoke on the streets, that language is called Sanskrit to us today, not Vedic Sanskrit. And in that Sanskrit, Valmiki wrote Ramayana, and Lava and Kusha sang those poems. They are not mantras of the Veda, they are slokas. They sang them on the streets and the chaurastas of Ayodhya city, which was the capital of a global empire of the Suryavamsha, Kshatriya kings lineage. So it is like Hindi of at that time. Just like Hindi came around 1000 years ago, and our Tulsidas wrote Ramcharitmanas in Hindi. He also lived in Kashi. He lived in Hanuman Ghat. And there is a temple near BHU where the miracles of Hanuman took place for Tulsi to save him from the persecution by Akbar and others. So that language, which we call Sanskrit today, was the Hindi of Valmiki's time. That's why Valmiki is called Adikavi. Now, why I'm telling all this is, these books, which are all written in what is called Sanskrit, not Vedic Sanskrit, but classical Sanskrit, which we call Sanskrit language today, they themselves are in huge numbers, not to speak of the Vedic literature. Because those people, they knew that the medium was going to be destroyed. Mr. Gupta, you are mistaken. They had written language, they wrote on other media like rocks and copper plates, etc. But the method which they have selected is oral, deliberately, because they knew the medium problem will come. Because in modern technology, if the medium was floppy disk, now floppy disk is gone, it's not there. Or if the medium was magnetic tape, now magnetic tape is gone, it's not there. So the problem will come with medium, because the all media are temporary. So they decided to teach to the human brain, human medium, because human being will survive generation to generation. Children will be conceived, they'll grow up, again children. So the lineage will be sustained. As long as human race survives, the Shruti will survive. That is their plan. They didn't expect that people will give up and then they'll start reading ABCD and all that kind of thing instead of this. So, but their plan worked for thousands of years. Even now it works partly, though not fully. These temples or whatever constructions you are referring to are constructed much later, not during Vedic times, not during the Shruti period. They are constructed much later. By then already recordings have happened on the manuscripts. I already told you, don't ask questions without thinking. I already told you the manuscripts were written on palm leaves and burja leaves much later compared to the Vedic period. So after the classical Sanskrit came from Valmiki onwards, the Ramayana of Valmiki, for example, is not a Shruti because it is not delivered through oral means. Though partly it was delivered through oral means to Lavakushas by Valmiki himself, it is not that from generation to generation it was passed only through oral means. That is why it is called Smriti. It is recorded, and it is recorded in palm leaves. And that tradition, I have seen hundreds of palm leaves. I have studied hundreds of palm leaf manuscripts in Jaipur library, in Adayar library, and so many cities, as I told you, every city has. So all the knowledge, in fact, I have seen a book called Manasaram, which is explaining how to construct 12-story palaces. And there are many books, starting with Maya Matam on Vastu Shastra, explaining how to construct huge structures or town planning, architect, you name it, all the subjects, medicine, the Ayurveda, Siddha. As I told you, for 1 lakh years, the human being has existed at least, if not more. So the entire knowledge base during 1 lakh years, which was developed and flourishing and expanding, mostly it was based on the Saraswati river banks, starting in the Himalayan edges. I went to the birthplace of Saraswati River on the foothills of Himachal Pradesh with Haryana. It's called Adi Badri. The Saraswati River started there and it flew throughout Haryana and Rajasthan and merged into the ocean, the Arabian Sea. Now it's all desert. Saraswati River dried up long back. Underground only it exists, even in Jaisalmer. It is there in underground today. Of course, they are trying to revive it. Sometimes they have revived it. So now the point I'm trying to make is, for about 1 lakh years, because Saraswati River was lost, Vinashanam took place. There is a place called Vinashanam. It became lost even before Mahabharata war. So much so that the death rituals for the warriors of Mahabharata war were conducted on the banks of Saraswati River, which is very close to Kurukshetra, by culling out the water from underground, even during Mahabharata war, at the end of Mahabharata war. I went to the spot where the death rituals were performed by pulling out the water from underground, Saraswati River, in Saraswati Tirtham or Pehova in Haryana. And I have also performed some rituals for my own ancestors using that water. Now the point is that if it dried up by before Mahabharata, when was it in full scale? Because the Rigveda refers to Saraswati River as the largest river. There is a river Sukta in Rigveda where all the rivers were mentioned. Of course, the river Sukta belonged to different periods of time. When Yamuna was not there, Saraswati was there. And there is a Saraswati Sukta itself. And the very first mantra of Atharva Veda is praising Saraswati River. Prano Devi Saraswati. So now the word Saraswati is used for flow of knowledge and flow of water both. Now the banks of Saraswati River, I went to many such spots in Haryana where the ashramas of the rishis existed. Even now they are there as temples, commemorated memorials. And in those ashramas, the mantras of the Vedas were delivered and the Vedas were composed. Not one shot, but at different periods, different mantras were delivered and they were compiled together into different suktas of the Rigveda and so on. So why I'm telling all this is the evidence we have in the Rigveda referring to Ambitame, Naditame statements, O biggest river, O greatest mother. So that is the praise given to the Saraswati River. So when was it the biggest river? Which is about 10 kilometers of width, not length. Length is hundreds and thousands of kilometers. That was way back, maybe 20,000, maybe 25,000 years ago, because it dried up by Mahabharata war, which is dated around 3200 BC. That's about 5,000 years from now. And the Saraswati River got dried up due to tectonic changes, and the water got diverted, and Yamuna was created, and water went into Yamuna. Now Yamuna is there in Delhi. And even this Saraswati River originally was not very far from Delhi. It is in Haryana. So if you go from Gurgaon, it will be very close. Jajjar, there is a river called Jajjar, Gaggar, and so on. They are all different versions of Saraswati now later. So there is an evidence that the Rigvedic Shruti delivered during the full-scale existence of Saraswati River. So we are talking of a huge period of time of about 1 lakh years of continuity of civilization, because in Meerut, which is not very far from Kurukshetra. Meerut was the place where Hastinapuram existed. I went there on the banks of Ganga. You can also find the remnants of old Stone Age at Meerut. So old Stone Age at Meerut 1 lakh years ago. And Saraswati River at Kurukshetra and entire Haryana, Pehova and many spots are there. Adibadri onwards and going into Rajasthan and then finally into ocean and Gujarat after crossing Rajasthan. So this entire journey of Saraswati River is now sought to be revived with the waters of Sutlej and so on. There is a person called Darshan Lal Jain who lives in Yamuna Nagar in Haryana district, Yamuna Nagar district, which is where the Adibadri is touching the Himalayas. I have taken into my mouth the waters of Saraswati. I have taken bath in Saraswati. You cannot see it on the surface. You can see underground. At times, the water is pumped out from underground. So I suggest all of you also can go and see all these places. If you go to Kurukshetra, there is one Mahabharata museum. If you go inside, you feel as if you are inside the war, Mahabharata war. Somebody is screaming, somebody is killed, somebody is bombing in the museum. Luckily, it's not a real war. If it is a real war, you would be dead if once you go there. So in that Kurukshetra museum, Mahabharata museum, there is what is called Kurukshetra Development Board publications. They have a thick book of 300 pages giving a large number of spots, details, you can, how to go there, what to see there, all the important spots in Haryana. Starting with the Brahma Sarovar, which is where Brahma started its creation process. A very holy place. The entire Haryana is full of the Vedic spots. This is evidence. Why I'm telling all this is about the evidence. So now, coming to the post-Vedic literature, which are again recorded in manuscripts. It is not Sruti, but it is Smruti. Smruti means memoirs. Memoirs either in mind itself. Some people know some of the books, entire book by heart. Very few people. It's not like Veda that hundreds and thousands of lakhs of people are taught. It is not like that. But mostly it is recorded on the manuscripts. So out of these manuscripts, you should remember that the printing was invented in China or in Europe, I don't know, around 100, 150 years ago. Before that, there was no printing machine. So only mechanism was recording on manuscript form on the Talapatras and Bhojapatras. Now, why I told all this is that all these manuscripts found in various libraries have not been published. Only few have been published. Nobody has even read them. Very few have been read. I have tried to read a few here and there. I took up a task of identifying the science and technology subjects in various manuscript libraries, starting with Jaipur and Adyar and so on. Jaipur Palace Pothi Khana manuscript library is there. So the sciences of ancient India in manuscript form were in the form of Ayurveda, Rasayana, Tantra, Jyotisha. These are the names given. Various subjects were covered. For example, the medicinal plants or the I am coming to the Vimana Shastra. I am still not come to it. So all these science and technology subjects were there in the manuscripts. I've seen with my own eyes because I was trying to decipher some of the words given in the Vimana Shastra. So all these manuscripts, they are still there. You can also go and try. Of course, the Royal Asiatic Society Library in Calcutta has many. They have stolen many of them and taken it to England. In every village in India, and in fact, every family in India, they had manuscripts belonging to their ancestors. So the manuscript mission, National Manuscript Mission, tried to compile all these manuscripts. And a lot of people came and gave because their ancestors, grandfather, great-grandfather, had these manuscripts, so they just gave. And as I tell, 99% have not been published. So this is the scenario of the knowledge repository of India. Now the 1 lakh years of development of knowledge on the Saraswati River banks, which was before the manuscripts were written, that entire knowledge spread into Arabia, China, and from Arabia to Europe. And that is how they have this number 0 to 9, because Europeans never knew decimal number system. They were having Roman numbers, writing X for 10 and V for 5 and like that. There is no decimal number system. So decimal number system was delivered from India to Arabia and from Arabia to Western Europe. That's Western Europeans call those numbers as Arabic numerals, whereas the Arabs call them as Hind-Sa. Hind means India. Now, the entire manuscript-based libraries, it is impossible for any one human being like me to study all the manuscripts in all libraries pertaining to science and technology. Though I tried for a few years, and then I found I can't do more than that. Of course, it should be done in a big scale. If you go to, say, Saraswati Mahal Library, you will find a large number of 22,000 manuscripts classified into some 100 different subjects. I found one yoga text written by Gorakhnath, which has never been published. They tried to bring it and publish it, tried to get a copy. I sat with our Guruji Dikshitlu and tried to edit it and publish it. But before that was done, he passed away. So these kind of issues are there, very down-to-earth practical issues. I'm just opening your eyes into the reality of the science and technology manuscripts in the whole world. Even I went to Germany, Heidelberg, there also they have a huge number of manuscripts. They have published some of those books on their own with translations into German or even in English. Now, the other questions, the two questions which I asked, first question is already answered. Way before, because the Westerners did not even have the decimal number system. That's why Einstein went on record when he declared that but for Indians, there would be no science and technology. Because without decimal number system, if you use Roman numbers, there is no way you can develop any science and technology. And the Vedas themselves had a good amount of mathematics, like in the Rudrajaya, Eka Chame, Tisranchame, Panchachame, Saptachame, the odd number series, the even number series, the Fibonacci number series, and then also the mantra multiples of 10, Chatancha Saha, Dasha Shatam, Sahasra Ayata, Prayuta, Niyuta. So like this, the multiples of 10 were given up to 10 to the power of 40, which is Tallakshana. So even in my Vimana Shanti ritual of crossing 69, entering 70, they have chanted some mantras, which are some of them are very famous. They say multiply by 100. May your Shatamaram Bhavati, may you live 100 years. Shatamaishwaryam Bhavati, may your wealth become 100 times. So may your glory become 100 times, and then they also chanted 100,000, 10,000 like this up to 10 to the power of 40. These are some of the famous extracts, but now the second question will be answered through the Vimana Shastra. whether those advanced technology descriptions are true or false, like Pushpak Vimana or Brahmastra. So now what happened was that the manuscripts which I studied and surveyed, they were of relatively recent origin, and they did not contain, I could not get any manuscript which explained about, say, Brahmastra. Of course, I had some mantras and all that, or which explained about Vimanas. So usually when people say Pushpak Vimana, they will think Ramayana. Ramayana is not a Shastra. It is a Kavya, Adi Kavya. Shastra means a technical manual, technical text. Ayurveda Shastra, Yoga Shastra, Mantra Shastra. There will be a number of books which are pertaining to that subject, which will explain the technology in that subject. Ramayana is not one such. It is a Kavyam, Adi Kavyam by Valmiki. It is not a Vimana Shastra. So it will not explain how to build Pushpak Vimana. Similarly, Mahabharata also. They have Saubhaka Vimana used by Sarva, an ordinary king who attacked Dwarka. So this is very common in many texts. The many Vimanas have been described, and many Astras have been described. Mahabharata describes Pashpatastra, Brahmasiro Namakastra. Last one was Brahmasiro Namakastra, which destroyed the entire globe, was getting affected. So it had to be withdrawn. You can see all those references, Ashwadhama, how he played havoc, and how Arjuna and Krishna have calmed down. And after that, Vyasa and Krishna have stopped the development of astras. So after the Brahmastra in Mahabharata, no other astras were found because Kali Yuga started. In Kali Yuga, very poor levels of technology are there. Yes, all these astras are known as Divyastras. So many are there. If you see the Bhandarkar Oriental Research Institute publications on Mahabharata and check the astras, they gave a list of around 20, 30, 40, maybe even 100 astras, Vayavastra, Agnyastra, and so on and so forth. And nobody knows how they work today. And their knowledge has been withdrawn deliberately. Now it is not possible to reproduce. If it was possible to reproduce, by now, entire human race would have been destroyed. No human being would have survived. Even nuclear bombs which are developed are now kept closely controlled with what is called nuclear detent treaties, because once the nuclear bombs start getting deployed and used by one country against another, within few minutes, the entire human race will be eliminated on the earth. That's why the astras, as like nuclear bombs, are kept under control or detent. In the case of astras, they are completely removed. Because in Kali Yuga, they know adharma will be more dominant than dharma, and people are very foolish, less intelligent, so they may misuse that knowledge. So the deadly wars which took place Mahabharata period and before Mahabharata period, they deployed the astras, whereas all wars post Mahabharata never deployed any astras because they are not there. Nobody knows. Vimanas also. Post Mahabharata, no Vimanas were seen. And now coming to the hard subject of Viman Shastra, having given the background. In 1875 period, there was a person by name Subbaraya Shastri, Anekal Subbaraya Shastri, belonged to a village called Anekal, which is in the outskirts of Bangalore. His statue is there even today. He had a very strange life journey. He was born in Bharadwaja Gotra, which is also my Gotra. Telugu Brahmin. I am also Telugu Brahmin. But I am not born in Anekal. He was born in Anekal. So he was an ordinary person. and he was going to die one day due to smallpox. A lot of people died. There was no vaccination, and his own family members started dying. So he thought, I will also die. So why should I wait until I die naturally? I'll go and die beforehand. So he went into forest. One big lake was there, and he was going to jump into it to die. At that time, one person with a long beard and all, I think his name was Bhaskaranda, he saved him, took him into a cave and asked him, why do you want to die? And what do you want? Then he said the entire story. Then he said, okay, he cured him of smallpox. And then he asked him, what do you want? He said, I want knowledge, because those days only those Brahmins who have high levels of knowledge were getting respected, were given funds or respect and posts. He said, all right. Then he said, which knowledge you want? He said, I want Bhautika Shastra's knowledge. Then that yogi did a Hastamastaka Samyogam like this on this Subraya Shastri, and this man went into trance, Samadhi. During that period, the knowledge transfer took place from that yogi into this Subraya Shastri. Now, about 100 different texts. This is a unique mechanism which happens sometimes. Even Ramkrishna Paramsa, Vivekananda, that kind of a thing is shown. And after which, this man knew something like 100 books in his head. So he will close his eyes and he will go on chanting whichever subject you tell. This is the description given in his biography. So once he was traveling on a bullock cart, because those days no other mechanism except bullock cart was there for common people to travel. Of course, rich people had their own horses and horse carriages. So he was traveling on a bullock cart from Anekal to Shimoga. So in the same bullock cart, because like in the same train, you have a lot of passengers with you. In the same bullock cart, there are a few other passengers in that bullock cart. 2 or 3 will be there. So one B. Surnarayan Rao, B.S. Rao, who is also a Telugu Brahmin, who was sitting there, who was the grandfather of B.V. Raman, the famous astrologer. So he asked him, where are you going? What is you, this, that? Then this man told everything. Then that B. Surnarayan Rao took a lot of interest and then engaged scribes who write down very fast. So this Subraya Shastri kept on delivering various Shastras. We'll entertain questions later at the end. Let me finish first. Remove your hand. So the Subraya Shastri delivered. Can you remove that hand? It is disturbing. Ashish Dubey, remove that. Yeah. So the Subraya Shastri kept his eyes closed and kept on. He'll do some mudra like this and get into some kind of a trance and go on delivering Sanskrit slokas. He delivered around 100 different books. I have seen those recordings. I have with me the copies of them from 1911, 1916, 1918, 1929, up to 1940. Starting from 1911. So those recordings, those books comprise Vimana Shastra also, and then there is one Kritaka Vajra Nirnaya, how to prepare artificial diamonds, and there is one Valmiki Ganitam, and there is one Aptattva Upanyasam, there is one Anhika Nrisimha Parijatam, and there is one Rajya Tantram, and many others. I have quoted these things because I could copy only these from those original manuscripts written on old glazed paper, very high quality glazed paper, handwritten by G. Venkatachala Sharma, who is the scribe of Subraya Shastri, appointed by B. Sunarayan. So all these manuscripts are there in the house of the Subraya Shastri's descendants. Subraya Shastri had only one daughter, or adopted daughter. and she had a son by name Venkatram Shastri, who was an advocate in Seshadripuram in Bangalore, whose son was present in Seshadripuram when I went in search. And I recorded from his house all these manuscripts. And now there is a receipt there which says that there are 90 plus manuscripts taken to Mysore by one G.R. Josier. And I went to Mysore in search of G.R. Josier. But G.R. Josier died, and G.N. Josier was there, or G.N. Josier and G.R. Josier's son. He said, I don't have anything, because they published the Vimana Shastra English translation by himself in Mysore in 1970s. So this thing, became a very big sensation, and Mysore Maharaja gave an honorable position to Subraya Shastri. And then from Bombay, one Talpude, one doctor, medical doctor, he went and took the, of course, Subraya Shastri came to Bombay for a few years. He was very famous personality. Then he guided this Talpude to build one Vimana called Marut Sakha, on which films have been taken. Even on my work, some films have been taken, both in India and Italy. And that Marut Sakha had actually flown before the Wright brothers invented Vimana. It has flown on the Chowpatty beach, and it was witnessed by the Maharaja Shayaji Rao Gaikwad of Baroda. And this was printed in Times of India at that time, around 18, not sure exact date, 1880 or something. And I have seen the Xerox copy of that printout of Times of India news of the Vimana having flown on the Chowpatty beach for some time. So that way the first Vimana was built in India and not by Wright brothers. This fact is suppressed by Britishers in a big way. The British administration confiscated that small Vimana, and then they put it in the archives somewhere. We tried to locate, but we could not. Of course, the British government was bent upon suppressing any development of science and technology in India, because they wanted to have their own control on everything. Now, this Subraya Shastri died around 1946 or something. And these manuscripts are left out, which I could revive in a very peculiar circumstances when I was a student. Let me tell my own brush with Vimana Shastra. I was a student of engineering in JNTU College of Engineering at Masak Tank at Hyderabad during 71 to 76 BTech course. JNTU was started in 72. 72 to 76, that Masak Tank campus. So I used to sit in the lunchtime with my classmates and my juniors to decipher some of these yantras given in this Vimana Shastra book, which was there in Hindi translation with all question marks kept for hundreds of words. And it was available in the Nizam's State Central Library, which I could get to my hand, that book. And we deciphered around 13 electrical machines, only on paper. I could translate because I knew Sanskrit by then. I studied Ashtadhyayi Pandi grammar at the age of 12. And all this happened much later, around 18, 19 years of my age. And after finishing BTech in JNTU in Electronics and Communication Engineering, I went to Bombay IIT. I was staying in the hostels. There, I realized that the Bombay IIT has a project called Chumbak Mani project, under which they actually produced one material called Chumbak Mani from the description given in the same Vimana Shastra for a yantra called Guha Garbha Adarsh Yantra. So that Chumbak Mani was characterized in TIFR as a ferrite and semiconductor soft ferrite. It was able to behave like semiconductor, and under sunlight exposure, it was delivering voltage also as photoelectric effect also. And it could generate microwave energy if under proper circumstances. That's what the Guhagar Bagar Shantra was describing as a microwave radiation generator, which will generate microwave radiation, which will go into the earth and penetrate the earth and get reflected back from the underground objects, if any, metallic objects like bombs, and then show the image on a screen inside the Vimana. It looks like science fiction, but it was actually there, and they could reproduce that material, and they tested it and confirmed it as a semiconductor. In modern day times, semiconductors were developed in 1954 as germanium and silicon. This is not even a compound, it was a mixture of many items. So then the CSR established what is called Chumbakmani project and reconfirmed the properties under Professor Sharan, Maheshwar Sharan, whose wife is there now, who passed away some time back. And this first attempt was done by Huskute of Chemical Engineering Department with the help of Naren Sheth of Bombay, who played a role like me to translate things and decipher. All this happened during late 70s when I was existing in IIT Bombay as a student. And then much later, during 1890, or rather even 99, when we brought these manuscripts from Bangalore, we wanted to reproduce some of the materials in Hyderabad. We requested the Bombay people to help us. They asked them to come. Once they came, that Naren said, and then later he refused to come unless the patent rights are given to his name, for which Birlas did not agree. So they dropped out. Once they dropped out, I was forced to save the situation by entering into the shoes of Naren Sheth in trying to decipher some of the formulas given there, and with the divine intervention, so to say, by luck, I could reproduce around half a dozen different new materials and produce them in various laboratories in Hyderabad and test them in various laboratories. And there were 2 copper alloys, 1 lead alloy, 1 glass. And then I shifted to the non-metallic items like food items. And then I also did independent research into Tantra Shastra to produce what is called the Agnistambhanam, a spray which will make fireproof of any material. It will not burn in flames. I got a patent for it. And then Anaharam is a powder with which you can make laddus and eat, and you will not feel hungry for half a day. So all these products are there in the report which I wrote. And last time I showed you the samples. Now I'm not able to show you the samples because of I gave the samples, some of the samples to RCI, Research Center Imarat of DRDO, where they now plan to make a big piece of Tamogar Baloha to check for its stealth radar detection properties, that is how much absorption of microwave range, radar range would be there, expand and expand. So with one of the materials, we made the Vakra Prasarana Yantra. I showed you last time. I don't want to show again this time. Now the yantras in Vimana Shastra, there are about 31 yantras. Angan Yekatrimshat. So let us go into the Vimana Shastra. It starts with the definition of Vimana. Veda Samskruti Samiti. That is the first sutra. Like birds. The word aviation comes from the word ave, which means a bird. Like a bird. So aviation in English also comes with a similar concept. Similar to birds. Gramat Gramantram va, Deshat Desantram va, Loka Lokantram va. These are the different types of Vimanas. Short distance, long distance, and very long distance, interplanetary also. And various chapters are there, like there is Shakti-adhikaranam on energy principles used, there is Ahara-adhikaranam, there is Vastra-adhikaranam, there is something similar to the astronauts' dress. It is not same, it is different, it is their own. And Ahara-adhikaranam, he has given some tablets kind of things preparation. I prepared one of them for long distance space travel without carrying any cooking requirements. So only by this, how to survive for the astronauts. And then he has given various phenomena which will be encountered during the long distance space travel, during the passage of Vimana through various spots and various space phenomena, outer space phenomena, like meteorite impacts and types of radiations impacts, and the impact which will create when Vimana enters the confluence of the orbits of planets, specific zones, the effects it will suffer and how to counteract them. I presented lectures on this in ISRO and in USA also, and in various institutions. They are all valid technological descriptions. The materials have been patented. They don't exist in modern technology. They have properties which are unique, which are not there and not known to modern technology. So it created a sensation. My work was reported in more than 35 countries in 35 different languages. Websites were in those days in early 90s and 2000 after the internet came. At that time, there was no internet. And then, of course, the critics were there saying all this is bunkum and all that kind of thing. So finally, I gave many press conferences where I showed these materials as the evidences, which I showed you last time. And after showing the evidence, everybody became silent. All the critics became silent. Well, I don't claim impossible things. I only claim what has been proven. So whatever we could prove, samples only. So by the technique of induction, that is 1 is true, 2 is true, 3 is true, 5 is true, 7 is true, or 10 is true, then even 20 could be true, 30 could be. There is no guarantee, but so that is the induction process. In addition to myself, there are many others who have reproduced many other materials, like Narayan Shade and one institute at Guntur also, one Sudhakar Shastri is there. He has reproduced some of the materials. And one girl, Kavya, Vattadi Kavya is there, young girl, who is now spearheading a youth movement for Vimana Shastra. Of course, there are a lot of critics who would say all this is bunkum. But when we show the materials and ask them to check the properties, they can also reproduce. Then they become silent. All the very vociferous and emotional critics, they suddenly become silent when we show these materials. So one Mukundan himself, in fact, ISC Bangalore wrote a paper criticizing this book. When I met the authors and showed the materials, they became silent. They said, no, we never said the materials are not true. Materials are true, but Vimanas are not true. So when you have not even produced materials, because it took many years and decades to produce materials, and those people in ISC, they were so much in a hurry, they never spent even 1 month. They simply wrote one paper, this whole thing is a hoax. And when you go back and showed this thing, then they'll say, no, we never said materials are not true. We never said metals are not true, because India is known for metallurgy, Delhi iron pillar, and so on. This shows their, and then finally, that man tells me, we wrote that paper in a hurry because we wanted to counteract the opposite group, which was going Zingoism on the Indian national science. And so we wanted to counteract them because we were leftists. This kind of nonsense they behave. It's shameful that top professors of top institutes behave like this. And in fact, the publisher of that paper itself wrote that this paper is not well studied. It is written in haste. So they have removed that comment from that paper. So this kind of fraud people indulge in without, it requires huge amount of investigation to reproduce some of these. There are more than 200 materials described, and the 31 yantras described, which comprised parts, which comprised input ingredients, materials. First materials, then parts, then yantras, then vimanas. So you don't even produce one material, then you talk of vimanas. What nonsense is this? So now, through my contacts with Prahlad Ramarao, the head of defense, DRDL previous, I am reviving some of the characterization techniques activities in the RCI. So when Rakesh Kumar is involved, he's the head of the stealth technology. All this is secret research center, is RCI, Research Center Imarat. So that's where it stands. I think I'll stop here now and then open up for questions.
Okay. There are one or two questions in the chat box.
One question has already been answered. So there is only one question. Two questions. You once mentioned that Vimana Shastra was once revealed again to some sadhaka in deep meditation. Is it true?
I've already explained.
Right.
Just now.
The second question is the Vyastras in general, they are referred to.
Yeah, same thing. Astras are different. I have already answered those. All different astras. They are based on mantras.
Yeah.
So I tried my own luck in getting the mantras effects. I found the mantras for the Vyastras in the books of Mantra Shastra. But then I have not achieved the siddhi of those mantras because you have to perform tapasya. Like people like Arjuna and Parashurama, all those people perform tapasya to achieve siddhi on Divyastras.
Okay.
So
there are no other questions on the chat box.
Yeah, let us open the forum for discussion.
Yeah, it is open now. Anybody wants to ask any question, please raise your hand or unmute and speak.
There are no questions. There is one question.
Why the term
Pushpaka is referred to Vimana?
No.
Prefixed.
Prefixed.
No, actually, it is not prefixed. It is the name of that Vimana. You have your name, right? You have your name. So Vimanas also have names. In fact, in our tradition, even books have names. So now some of the houses have names, like my house has a name. So that Vimana list is given in the Vimana Shastra. The Vimanas of Kruta Yuga separate, Vimana of Treta Yuga separate, Vimana of Dwapara Yuga separate, Vimana of Kali Yuga separate. So in Treta Yuga, the Pushpaka Vimana is one of the names of the Vimanas.
Guruji, I have a question. Why is the Gopura of the temple referred to as Vimana?
Oh, that is different. No. That word, one word will have many meanings in many contexts.
Okay.
That is different.
There is one question. What are your directions for future researchers?
Yeah, we have to, those who are serious and those who are competent have the required background and specialization in material science, chemistry, metallurgy, and also strong grip over Sanskrit language. Can try some new materials because the input ingredients will be given, the proportion of their mixture will be given in weight. Krishna Sisam Chanjanikam cha Vajratundam Samamshataha Sampurya Sukti Mushayam Shatakakshokshna Vegataha. Like this, the Vimana Shastra describes those who have all these prerequisites can try out making, if they have access to crucibles, furnaces, to make some Vimanas. So to make some materials which can be used in Vimanas, you can try them. And those who have knowledge of aeronautical engineering can try to decipher the designs of the Vimanas, like Kavya does. And those who have knowledge of mechanical engineering, They can try to decipher the design of some of the yantras like Vakraprasarana yantra. All are new. No, I didn't write any books on Vimana Shastra. I wrote only a report. I was writing a book on Vimana Shastra, but I stopped it because the incomplete information is there. We are not able to decipher 99% we are not able to decipher. So 1% or 2% we are able to decipher. So no, a book cannot be written because if you write a book without deciphering fully, then people will say, what nonsense is all this? So I only wrote a report or a paper on what has been done. That report is very famous. High technology in ancient Sanskrit manuscripts. This book is there. It's very famous in the internet. Thousands and lakhs of people have read it. You can just get it. High technology in ancient Sanskrit manuscripts. You'll get that paper. In fact, now that paper is being referred in academia with some other Russian person, Rusko. When you open it, you'll find my name inside. Otherwise, it appears as if he is the author. So I wrote a report, all these details which I mentioned today and last time. Yeah.
The other question is, are you interested in to develop the research group that you just mentioned?
Yes, but it should be effective, worthwhile. They should have the proper background, proper capabilities, proper labs access, defense labs or others, they should be. It is a very complex process. I had to stop everything because of those problems. We need high temperature furnaces, we need materials, we need funds, we need scientists, we need the infrastructure. I'm doing in a small scale now with limited possibilities of my own personal contacts.
The other question is that is the Wright brothers made Vimana are having the same material and property?
No. That is totally different. They were the motorcycle mechanics. Wright brothers were nothing but motorcycle mechanics. So they made their own way in their own way. It is nothing to do with the Vimana Shastra. But V2 rockets made by Germans are based on Vimana Shastra. That's what people say. I don't have any full evidence for that. Because Vimana Shastra gives description of 4 types of Vimanas. All the 4 principles of flight have been demonstrated there, but we are not able to reproduce because we are not able to reproduce those parts and yantras and which require those materials. We have produced only, we means I and my other workers in the same domain, they have produced at the most 10 or 12 materials. There are more than 200 materials. And unless you produce materials, you cannot make parts. Unless you make parts, you cannot make Vimanas. What was the other question? Yeah.
There are the drones which we find now can be set as mini Vimanas?
No, the word Vimana should not be used because that is used in Sanskrit language. Drones is a new technology. Remote control. This Vimana Shastra doesn't talk about drones. By the way, this Vimana Shastra is only one part of the total Vimana Shastra, which we don't have, and then which is itself a part of one very big book called Yantra Sarvasva by Bharadwaja. We don't have all. We have only one small part, and with that part, we are doing all this circus. Very difficult, extremely difficult situation. Of course, the Vimana Shastra refers to some 99 books which existed before the author compiled this Shastra. By the way, this is not a single book, it is a compilation. It is quoting from those 99 books of different subjects. And those books are not available, except maybe one. Shakti Tantra by Agastya was found somewhere where a battery was being described. So all other books are not available. There are many books on metallurgy and rocketry, and they were all lost. Because they belong to a period much before the Kali Yuga, when Vimana Shastra, this along with the commentary, was composed by the Guru of Subraya Shastri. Those books belong to much earlier periods, and those sutras are supposed to be belonging to Bharadwaj. Only sutras, not the commentary. Commentary is given by Bodhananda, who is quoting from various other texts. Those in situ quotations can be seen there. And some of those books are very ancient. They have Vedic characteristics also, like Upadhaniya and so on. Next. What's the next question?
There are no questions on the chat box.
No, some question I think was not answered. One big question was there.
There are no questions.
The Vedas are called Aporishas. Then what is about the mention of rishis, chandas, deva, etc. in mantras of Vedas? How it is related?
No, you are asking this question now. I have already given lectures on Vedas. I have explained all this previously. Why are you asking it now? This is about Vimana Shastra. I don't want to mix up Vedas, Bhagavad Gita, Upanishads, everything is Vimana Shastra.
Yes. This is not related to Vimana Shastra. Okay. Tumuluri Lakshminarayan garu, Narasimhan garu.
Sir, namaste, sir.
Cheppandi.
Sir, actually, in mathematics, in Sanskrit, everything we get in the verbal form. That means our verses with chandas. Even for zero, there are about 10 words. So it should suit the meter. Now, this Vimana or aeroplane or even rocket is fully involved in mathematics, so particularly the Bernoulli principle or the associated differential equations, all higher order differential equations for designing the flights. Then how in ancient India, because not only metallurgy is one part of design of aircraft, the other part is doing aerodynamics. That is full of mathematics. And how in ancient India this could be thought of when mathematics is only in Sanskrit? Can we get the ideas of differential equations through Sanskrit verses?
Yes, answer is yes. Because if you look at the Bhaskara, Paramira, Aryabhata, all these books, like the first algebra is in a book called Leelavati by Bhaskaracharya on his daughter's name. It has only verses, slokas. All the equations are described in slokas. You refer to that, okay? And even other mathematicians, they are all describing everything through slokas. You should not make the mistake of thinking that whatever mechanism, method, or procedure which we are following today will be followed by them. It is not going to happen. You understand what I'm saying?
But results should be same. Sir,
whatever they have a different method. See, the modern fellows like Newton, Leibniz, they copied from them and developed a modern notation, which you and I are using is modern notation. Like you can't expect Fahrenheit, centigrade temperature scale in the ancient times. They have their own scales. Is it not common sense? So you cannot expect modern notation, writing, y is equal to x, this, x square plus bx plus c, like this, you cannot expect. They have their own way of writing, even equations. If they did not know differential equations, they would not be able to even build complex structures, let alone Vimanas. Am I right? Suppose Ellora temple is there, or Pranadiswaralayam Tanjavur is there. Without knowing the stress analysis, how can they design and construct which will withstand thousands of years? So in strength of materials, in civil engineering, there also we have the differential equations. So they have their own way, not this way. The same knowledge, don't make the mistake of thinking that whatever way you do, others also will do. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes,
so,
sir,
for example, for example, if you look at some of the movies taken out on the outer space visitors, extraterrestrial. Suppose there are some UFOs and some people are coming from outside space. Their way of doing things, their way of technology, their units, their technology itself will be totally different from what we have today here. Am I right or not? So in the same way, the ancient technology is totally different the same topics will be treated in a different way. That can be seen in the Bhaskaracharya's Leelavati text, how he explains an equation in a sloka. You have
Yes,
to
sir,
study more.
that has come only up to algebra level, but calculus portion
no.
only some series, infinite series, something was there. But this present even Newton, it is only elementary calculus. So only it was developed only in 19th century. What we apply in engineering, that is advanced level calculus. Can we recast calculus from the Sanskrit text, sir? So for
Modern history, it is now confirmed that in 14th century, one Madhava of Kerala wrote books giving the calculus. So the Jesuit priests took those books to England, and from there Leibniz and Newton and even later people developed the calculus on
Yes, sir,
their
that
own
was
after
yes, sir,
taking
Professor
the input from
Ramasubramaniam of Bombay IIT. He is establishing
Yeah.
all those. But my doubt
Yes.
is the result should be same. Suppose some disease is to be treated, maybe through Ayurveda or through allopathy, the result will be same: disease understanding and curing. So this particular design and theoretical aspect, how our Sanskrit text explain? Can we have any Sanskrit version of calculus, sir? Today,
Yeah, it is there. It is there in Madhava's books. Madhava of Kerala is now acclaimed originator of calculus. Ram Subramaniam has made it very clear. He is a specialist in it. There is a book called The Crest of Peacock written by one Varghese in Oxford University. He wrote a book on this. Now it is being accepted. Recently, ISRO chairman also gave a statement. So the ancient mathematical techniques were copied first and then reformatted and reproduced in a different way by the Western mathematicians. So don't expect same. It will be different. Even if you take music itself, like Hindustani music is different from Carnatic music. Though music is same. In the same way, the method of expression of variables or expression of equations will be different in Sanskrit text. Even the material science, metallurgy, the descriptions, the formulas given will be different. It will be different from modern science and technology. It has to be. If it is same, then it is fake. You understand what I'm saying? If you have a Sanskrit text explaining same differential equations which we have studied in our college, then that Sanskrit text is a fake, which you and I can write. So it will be a different domain. You have to go into that. Like, for example, if you take the Shilpa Shastra, Sthapatis, now we have so many Sthapatis who construct temples. Now they follow the Vastu Shastra text, Shilpa Shastra text. So there some ready-made formulas are given. So those ready-made formulas which this fellow adopts in implementation were developed based on differential equations earlier. And see, similarly in Jyotish Shastra also. So it's a very complex situation. It's not as simple as we have been molded in a different way of thinking in the modern times. That is different world or different life altogether. It is like extraterrestrial technology. So that's why the decipherment becomes very difficult. But we know because the results are coming, they have constructed huge structures without differential equations. How can they do it? So those who did it may not know entire thing. They may know only some final formula. They'll simply use it. And the earlier books had earlier things, which we lost. Like even in the case of Jyotish Shastra, if Hora Parasharam simply tells if the angular position of the planet at the time of birth is so and so, then so and so result will come. Why it will come, he will not tell. So there must be earlier texts, because do we have the text written by any of the great rishis? We don't have. Like for example, Atri, Agastya, where are those books? Bharadwaja, one or two books we may have. So this various texts belonging to much earlier periods, say Treta Yuga, Kruta Yuga, or even Dwapara Yuga, which we don't have today. We have lost everything. What we have today is very few things, and as I told you in the beginning of my talk, even the existing manuscripts don't contain high technology. They contain some simple things. They contain how to cast idols for temples using so and so formula, or how to build a temple with so and so ratios, so and so ready-made formula in Vastu Shastra. I have discussed with Vastu people also. They have ready-made formulas they follow. But how those formulas came, they will not tell. So those formulas which are ready-made and used by modern people in the modern times by the Vastu and other specialists, they were based on the calculations on differential equation and other things earlier. And we don't have those books, except some few books by Madhava on calculus. So the different aspects are, I'm not saying everything in the modern technology was copied. A lot of it has been developed afresh in recent times, in 19th century, 20th century, 21st century. But we are talking of the roots. Before that, it is taken from Sanskrit. Now, this fact was suppressed by the Britishers and others. Now it is being exposed, and now they are gradually accepting that fact. And now the other important point is, most important point, in Indian tradition, Kali Yuga, modern times are the worst, lowest level. Am I right?
Correct.
Because adharma is 75%, adharma is 75%, and human beings are very weak. They live very short period, their brain capacity is very less, their strengths are very less. Whereas if you go back in time, you will find more advanced, more and more advanced science and technology, more and more advanced intellectual capabilities, more and more advanced human strengths. So it is exactly the opposite of modern logic of history or science of history. The modern logic is the more recent is more strong and more up to date and more advanced. But here it is opposite. So more ancient, more advanced. So whatever we have today in Sanskrit text is also very, very little, if any. Vimana Shastra is an exception because it has not come from the manuscript sequence, but it has come directly from the yogic powers of that guru of Subraya Shastri, who could recall the ancient text and reproduce them through his memory. And so that those ancient texts, one small piece, we got very small piece. There are around 99 other texts which are being quoted, not referred, just quoted. They're not available today. And the reality that those texts are valid is proven by the fact that whatever quotations were given, when you try it out experimentally in the laboratory, they're coming out to be real, and they are novel, and they are not done in modern technologies. Not only materials, but even the machines design, they don't exist in modern technology. Like this Vakra Prasana Yantra had 16 gear wheels. No such thing is there today. And materials we have found, they have special properties which don't exist today. Like this Tamogarbha alloy is absorbing all radiation. There are many other materials which are more advanced than what we have today. So in one example of material science, when there is so much advancement, then other fields also advancement must be there. Because advancement is not just in one field, it will be in various fields. So whatever archaeological items we have today, whatever manuscripts we have today are only low technology. The high technology was more and more ancient times. That is what is brought out from the Vimana Shastra research. We don't have access to all those books or all those techniques or technologies. It's a good thing that you are asking this question, but you have to study more deeper, and if you can find, if any, clues here and there. Yes, CC Babu.
Yeah, I heard that the ancient sciences of Vimana Shastra had more eco-friendly use of material and fuel than the modern Vimanas or whatever the aircrafts. Is it true?
yes, there is no comparison. The modern aircrafts are totally different. The ancient are totally different. Again, we have to remember one thing: the mass production concept was not there in the ancient times as today, because the population was very small. Mass production was not required. So whatever technology they had was very advanced, but it was limited. Like, this Pushpak Vimana was stolen by Ravana from Kubera. And not that there were thousands of Pushpak Vimanas. Like today, we have thousands of A10 or A20 or whatever, Airbus 740 or whatever. We have thousands of them. And that's not the concept there. Mass production and all not there. There's only limited production with but very high technology. The Pushpak Vimana had extraordinary features. The veracity of the Pushpak Vimana travel was also seen in the description from the Vimana, what is happening on the ground. So when they were traveling back from Lanka to Ayodhya, whatever they saw on the ground is the correct description on the ground, the ground truth. And also it appears they, for a short period, they went into outer space and came back, because they said during daytime they could see the stars. So that means they penetrated into outer space and came back. That will reduce this distance drastically, because when you go very high and come down, you are covering a lot of ground distance. Now such travel plans are also being made, outer space travel to cover long distance. Suppose you want to go intercontinental travel, instead of going only in the lower atmosphere, if you go higher and even into outer space and come down, then you can do it much faster. So all these various evidences are there, which are appearing to be real. And so we have to accept, we have no escape but to accept there could be truth in some of this. Next.
Okay, we have finished now all the questions and also from the audience. Thank you, sir, for elaborate explanation and deep knowledge of Vimana Sastra. Now we will close. Is it okay?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll close with Prarthana and Janaganamana. Anantanji.
ॐ स्वस्ति प्रजाभ्यः परिपालयन्तां न्याय्येन मार्गेण महिं महिषाः गोब्राह्मणेभ्यः शुभमस्तु नित्यं लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु काले वर्षतु पर्जन्यः पृथिवी सस्यशालिनी तेषोऽयं क्षोभरहितः ब्राह्मणाः सन्तु निर्भयाः अपुत्राः पुत्रिणः सन्तु पुत्रिणः सन्तु पौत्रिणः अदनाः सदनाः सन्तु जीवन्तु शरदां शतम् ॐ सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतङ्गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ सर्वेभ्यः नमस्कारः
ధన్యవాదములండి అనంతన్ గారు. Now let us request Challa Chittibabu garu to recite national anthem.
जनगणमन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंधु गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जहां तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगल गायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे जय
जय हिंद. ధన్యవాదములండి.